Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Dr. Hanita and to all my fellow classmates. So we are from Group 5 and we are going to present our poetry theme and ideas. This presentation has been prepared by me, myself, Nurshuhada, Nadiah Auni Nurin Syafira, Ainur Syarahanis, and Shalini. Alright, so our group choose peace and war as our team's idea. So we know that peace and war are two things that are related with each other and it plays a huge and important role in this world and current situation. So we know that throughout history, peace and war have deeply influenced human civilization, reflecting complex and also multifaceted dynamic across societies and nations. So their profound impacts touch every aspect of human existence, shaping global stability and also prosperity and security. Okay, let's begin with the concept of peace, which is a cornerstone of global stability and harmony. According to Laini Taylor, peace is actually more than just the absence of war. So it's actually a state of harmony, tranquility, and mutual understanding, not only among individuals but also among communities and nations. But we know that in today's interconnected world, with what kind of issues that currently happen in this world, such as like poverty, climate change, inequality education, Israel and Palestine conflicts. So it's really important and vital for us to achieve a sustainable peace so that we can actually address these global issues and we also can ensure a harmonious future for our generations to come. Okay, now we are going to delve into various perspective on peace from different faith tradition according to Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and also Buddhism. So in Islam, we believe that peace actually starts from surrendering to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, seeking forgiveness, and also striving spiritually. So this peace actually reflects in how we actually treat others, how we forgive others, and also how we foster harmony and understanding. So even in Al Quran also place limits on the use of force. Meanwhile, for Christianity, it teaches that peace actually starts inside us, like by finding harmony through faith in God and also forgiving ourselves. And they also believe that caring to the earth, taking the environment, and all living things is one of the concept of peace. Meanwhile, for Hinduism, they believe that actually peace begins with inner harmony, like through practices such as meditation, devotion. They also think that fulfilling one's duty, also known as dharma, and recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and promoting coexistence is one of an action of peace. Then, in Buddhism, they believe that peace actually begins internally through mindfulness, meditation, and also virtues. So, it's about like finding serenity despite life changes, and also nirvana, the ultimate liberation from suffering, bring profound peace by transcending desires and attachment as one of the concept of peace. Okay, so let's move our attention to the definition of war. So here we have four different meanings of war according to different four scholars, which the first one is according to Karl von Clausewitz, think that war is actually politics carried out through violent means. Meanwhile, according to Sun Tzu, war is actually a crucial matter for the state to determine its survival or downfall. And according to Hans Morgenthau, war is actually a conflict between organized group resolved through military force. And lastly, Martin Van Crevel think that war is actually an organized armed conflict involving multiple parties. So there are various meanings of war, but in a simpler term, actually war is a highly organized and sometimes a violent clash between groups driven by political goals and often determining the fate of the nations. And every types of war have their own purposes. So that is really important for us to know what are the types of war that we can find in this world. Alright, so there are various types of war that happen in this world, such as we have conventional warfare, chemical warfare, biological warfare, information warfare, guerrilla warfare, civil war, colonial war, champion warfare, and cold war. So every types of war actually have their own purposes, and in this presentation, we are going to focus on three types of war, which are conventional war, guerrilla war, and also the civil war. Okay, the first one is conventional war. So we know that conventional has the same meaning as traditional. So conventional war is actually involve traditional military operations between nation states or coalitions using conventional weapons and tactics. So for example, in Malaysia, back in 1948 to 1960, we have Malaysia's involvement in the Malayan emergency against communist insurgents. And for the global example is the Gulf War that happened in 1990 to 1991 between Iraq and a coalition led by the United States. So these two are the examples of conventional war that use conventional weapons or techniques in their war. Secondly, we have guerrilla warfare. So, guerrilla warfare is actually characterized by small mobile groups that use ambushes, sabotage, and hit and run tactics against a larger or maybe like a often occupying force. So, for example, in Malaysia, we have the communist insurgency during the Malayan emergency, where guerrilla tactics were employed by the Malayan Communist Party, also known as MCP. And for the global example, we have Israel and Palestine conflict. They also use the guerrilla technique in their war. So that is why we call it as guerrilla warfare, where like it was characterized by small and mobile group to against a big and huge, often occupying force. Okay, last but not least is civil war. So civil war is actually a conflict between different groups that happen within the same country, often seeking political power or control over the resources. So for example, in Malaysia, we have the Malayan Civil War that happened from 1968 to 1989 between the Malaysian government and also the Communist Party of Malaya, also known as CPM. And for the global example, we have the Syrian civil war that happened from 2011 until today, which involving various factions vying for control over Syria, including the government, rebel groups, and also extremist organization. So in the pictures that I provide here, we have the Bukit Kepung incident that happened in February 1950. Is one of the example of civil war that happened in Malaysia that actually happened because they want to take the power. They want it because of political goals, and also it is because of the control over the resources. And with that, I pass the button to the next presenter who will be going to share about the impacts of war. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. My name is Syafira and I will be speaking on the impacts of war. So, for the first impact is physical injury and death, where, as we know, victims often suffer severe physical injuries, including amputations, burns, gunshot wounds, and traumatic brain injuries. Unfortunately, many civilians, including women and children, are killed or maimed during conflicts. So I think, for the example, I think those of us who are on social media has been seeing the truth of this impact very clearly through the form of videos and photos from the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian war right now, and most of them are very very disturbing. So I opted not to put it in the slides, but if you are curious about it, I think you can look it up. It's everywhere. Yes, lots of them are very very disturbing. And even in Malaysia, many war veterans who were involved during the colonization of Tanah Melayu back then by the English and Japanese suffered lifetime physical injuries. I think the evidence is there and it's strong, and the impact of war through physical injury and death is very real and it's out there affecting a lot of people. Okay, so for the second impact would be psychological trauma, where, as we know, war inflicts significant psychological trauma, including anxiety, depression, post traumatic stress disorder, or as we know, PTSD, and other mental health disorder. And this is because that living in constant fear can have long lasting effects on mental well being. So, for this impact, psychological trauma, I think there are a lot of war fictional stories out there that we can look upon to further highlight the effect of psychological trauma, mostly on PTSD, on former soldiers and former victims of war. So, for a movie, I would suggest the movie American Sniper, starring Bradley Cooper. He was a sniper who took on around 200 lives by himself, and by the end of his service, he couldn't stand being alive, which highlights the effect of war on him as he suffers a very heavy PTSD. And for the series, personally, I have watched a series called Tomorrow, where one of the episodes was centered around a former Korean soldier who served in the Korean-Japanese War back then. And this soldier, he suffered a very heavy PTSD where he couldn't stand the sound of loud noises. You know, like thunder or the sound of hammers knocking or even rocks being thrown around. He gets scared and he will start shouting and getting out of control with his own reaction. And due to this effect, due to this psychological trauma, he ended up not being able to work anymore. So he ended up being a rubbish collector for the rest of his life. So I think what I'm trying to say is that the effects of war in terms of psychological trauma is very, very real. You can look it up. There are a lot of movies, a lot of series that highlights psychological trauma and the effects of it on former soldiers, former victims, and those who were involved in war. Okay, so for the third impact of war would be displacement and refugeehood, where war forces millions of people to flee their homes, becoming internally displaced within their own countries or seeking refuge in other countries. So I think of an example that I can give is that the example of the Rohingya people. So if you're not familiar, your Rohingya people are a stateless ethnic group. They predominantly lived in Myanmar, but unfortunately, the Rohingya genocide happened in 2017. And I think around close to 1 million people fled to Bangladesh, and another 1.4 million stayed in Myanmar. A lot of them scattered around across the Asian countries, sea countries, even including Malaysia. And the Rohingya people are described as the most persecuted minorities in the world, where they were denied citizenship under the Myanmar nationality law. And since they are stateless, they have no claims on education, on civil service jobs, and they lack the freedom of movement. And even now, I could give you an example of right now, Middle East countries are mostly denying Palestinian refugees from entering their country. So I think the whole case of refugees and whatnot is very complicated because some countries are different from another. There are some that are capable of accepting refugees, some are not. So I think war is very, very disturbing on the fact of people's livelihood. They have no place to go. Their homes are ruined. They have to beg for another country to accept them, so they can live, so they can, escape their own home country, which was damaged due to war. Okay, and the last impact that I would like to share with you would be health crisis, where war exacerbates health crises as victims face increased risk of injuries, illness, and death due to the breakdown of healthcare systems and infrastructure through the spread of infectious diseases, inadequate healthcare services, and lack of essential medicines and medical supplies. So, I think for this one, there are a lot of physical evidence of this in the form of videos. I've watched quite a few disturbing videos during the Palestinian Israeli war where pregnant women were denied medical supplies that are necessary for them to give birth. So they ended up giving birth in a very, very horrible way. which was very, very disturbing to watch. And even in Malaysia, back then, during the colonization of Japan, we could see a lot of young men were forced to work on the landasan kereta api maut, rumah Siam. And once they ended up there, they ended up suffering from the disease of malaria, which killed, I think, almost all of them. So, as I said from the examples earlier, war definitely affects the health of the victims involved. You know, they were denied medicines, medical supplies. They have, even if they are saved from, earthquake or bombs and explosions of buildings, if they ended up getting injured, in the end of the day, they still can't heal properly because they were denied access of medical supplies and medicines, which results in health crisis. So I believe that the impacts of war are very real, very true. It's out there, it's happening, and I don't think we should allow this to be happening right now. And so that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ainur Binti Ahmad Nazli. My matrix number A190718. So I will be presenting one of the conflicts related to peace and war that recently happened, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is lasting over a century. It is revolved around dispute over territory and identity in historic Palestine. So the mainly centers is on competing claims to land, especially in areas like Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. So the side effects include displacement of families, destruction of homes, and psychological trauma for civilians that caught in the crossfire. So this conflict remains a significant obstacle to stability in the region and global peace efforts. So next, we will take a look at the statistics of death and injured people due to this war. So according to the International Committee of the Red Cross (ICRC), an estimated 107,000 people were killed and in conflicts worldwide in 2020 due to wars with millions more injured or displaced. So amidst the recent Israeli-Palestinian conflict in Gaza, there have been significant casualties and devastation. So, according to Gaza's Ministry of Health, over 34,183 people have been killed and 77,084 people wounded in Israeli attacks, with 72% being women and children. Not to mention that the Human Rights Chief has stated that a child in Gaza is killed or wounded every 10 minutes. Moreover, approximately 7,000 people are missing, while many presume dead under the rubble. So this conflict began with Israel's military offensive on October 7 following an attack by Hamas fighters. So this offensive resulted in extensive displacement, with nearly 85% of Gaza's population displaced and over 14,000 children were killed. Furthermore, residential areas have been heavily bombed, with at least 75,000 tons of explosive dropped by Israeli forces. Nearly 90,000 housing units have been destroyed, and around 300,000 units damaged by the Israeli air and ground offensive. Not just that, half of Gaza's pre-war population are facing catastrophic food insecurity, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Hospitals have also been targeted, leaving only 10 out of Gaza's 36 hospitals minimally functional. So the UN Special Reporter named Talal Mofoke reported that at least 350 healthcare professionals killed and 520 wounded since October 7. So additionally, the Gaza Media Office mentioned that 485 medical staff have been killed since the war began.
So hi and hello everyone, I'm Shalini Devi Krishnan. My metric number is A185941. So today, as for my group's presentation about Israeli-Palestine conflict, so my part is about relevancy in poetry, and the theme is emotional depth. Certainly, emotional depth in poetry on the Palestinian conflict can provide a powerful lens through which to explore the complexities and human experiences involved. So, here are some thematic suggestions as for relevancy in poetry from my team. So, first of all, is loss and longing. It means that delve into the profound sense of loss experienced by individuals and communities on both sides, whether it's loss of land, loved ones, or a sense of belonging. It means that they lost their agricultural land, or maybe their the place that they have staying now, or maybe the loved ones among the family members or anything. So the second one is anguish and despair. Capture the deep anguish and despair felt by those living in conflict zones, the zones that that the people would be attacked so easily. So conveying the relentless cycle of violence and its toll on mental and emotional well-being as well. Thirdly, it's a resilience and hope. It means that despite the adversity, highlight moments of resilience and hope among individuals and communities, showing the capacity for endurance, survival, and even reconciliation. So, when it comes to identity and belonging, explore the complex layers of identity and belonging intertwined with the conflict. It means that they lost their land, agricultural land, or maybe the basic needs were in demanded for them. So touching on themes of nationalism, exile, and diaspora, and the search for home, definitely. So the fifth for this emotional depth is humanity amidst conflict. It means that illuminate the humanity shared by individuals on both sides of the conflict. It means that they emphasizing common experiences of love, fear, grief, and the universal yearning of peace. This is very important because since they lost their loved ones in the war, it's not easy for them to uh, carry on with their daily needs, or maybe their daily life. So that is what they are mentioning here. So by the delving into these themes with emotional depth, poetry can serve as a profound medium for fostering empathy, understanding, and dialogue surrounding the of the Israel and Palestinian conflict. Incorporating personal narratives into poetry of the on the Israeli and Palestinian conflict offers a poignant way to humanize the complexities of the situation. Here's how we can approach this theme. So first of all, it's a voice of the affected people, amplifying the voices of individuals directly impacted by the conflict, including refugees, soldiers, civilians, and also the activists, so that they will bring their stories, offer authenticity, and emotional depth. So when it comes to intervention histories, explore how personal narratives intersect with the broader historical context of the region, and also illustrating how individuals are shaped by the collective experiences of their communities. So the third point is identity and belonging. Reflect on the sense of the identity, belonging, and also displacement experienced by individuals caught in the midst of conflict. It means that whatever they have recorded when during the war, or maybe the person who were affected mostly during the conflict happened is the one considered as identity and belonging. It means that they lost their loved one, or maybe they lost their land, and as we discussed before. So it also highlighting the multifaceted nature of their identities as well. So the fourth point is resilience and survival. So it means that celebrate the resilience and strength of individuals who preserve in the face of adversity. It means it goes to the soldiers, or maybe normal standard people, or the citizen from there, and showcasing acts of courage, hope, and also solidarity at midst of the conflict. And the fifth point is cast for understanding. It means that foster empathy and dialogue by presenting diverse perspectives and experience. Also encourage the audience to listen, not only listen, but they learn, and also connect with humans to the human level. It means that they treat everyone in a same level. They don't be cruel, or maybe they don't like act cruel to other people as well. So by centering personal narratives in the poetry, we can usually evoke empathy, challenge stereotypes, or maybe foster a deeper understanding of the human dimensions of the Israel and Palestinian conflict. Incorporating personal narratives into poetry on the Israeli and Palestinian conflict offers a poignant way to humanize the complexities of the situation. Here's how we can approach this theme. So first of all, it's a voice of the affected people, amplifying the voices of individuals directly impacted by the conflict, including refugees, soldiers, civilians, and also the activists, so that they will bring their stories, offer authenticity and emotional depth. So when it comes to intervention histories, explore how personal narratives intersect with the broader historical context of the region, and also illustrating how individuals are shaped by the collective experiences of their communities. So the third point is identity and belonging. Reflect on the sense of the identity, belonging, and also displacement experienced by individuals caught in the midst of conflict. It means that whatever they have recorded when during the war, or maybe the person who were affected mostly during the conflict happened is the one considered as identity and belonging. It means that they lost their loved one, or maybe they lost their land, and as we discussed before. So it also highlighting the multifaceted nature of their identities as well. So the fourth point is resilience and survival. So it means that celebrate the resilience and strength of individuals who preserve in the face of adversity. It means it goes to the soldiers, or maybe normal standard people, or the citizen from there, and showcasing acts of courage, hope, and also solidarity at midst of the conflict. And the fifth point is cast for understanding. It means that foster empathy and dialogue by presenting diverse perspectives and experience. Also encourage the audience to listen, not only listen but they learn and also connect with humans to the human level. It means that they treat everyone in a same level. They don't be cruel, or maybe they don't like act cruel to other people as well. So by centering personal narratives in the poetry, we can usually evoke empathy, challenge stereotypes, or maybe foster a deeper understanding of the human dimensions of the Israel and Palestinian conflict.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nadiah Auni Binti Muhamad, and my metric number is A189532. So today I'll be presenting on the past poems and also the general idea for the poem for the theme of peace and war. Alright, so the first poem that I'll be analyzing is The Charge of the Light Brigade. So it is a poem written by Alfred Lord Tennyson back in 1854, and it is inspired by the Battle of Balaclava during the Crimean War. So I like this poem because it is actually a very powerful and evocative poem that explores the theme of bravery, sacrifice, and the tragedy of war, while also raising questions about the nature of heroism and the responsibilities of military leaders. So this is the poem. You can take a good look at it. Alright, so the second poem that I'll be analyzing, titled Duque at the Corumbas. So it is a poem written by an English poet, Wilfred Owen. So it was written between August 1917 and September 1918, while he was fighting in World War One. So Owen is known for his wrenching descriptions of suffering in war. So in this poem, he illustrates the brutal everyday struggle of a company of soldiers, focuses on the story of one soldier's agonizing death, and discusses the trauma that this event left behind. Alright, so the poem's title, Duque at Decorum Est, is an allusion to an ode by the Roman poet Horace, titled Duque at Decorum Est pro patria mori. So the quotation's meaning that it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country juxtaposes the poem's contents that describe the horror of war and declares Duque at Decorum Est to be an old lie. So the argument at the heart of the poem is that it is not, in fact, sweet and fitting to die for one's country, because there is no glory in war for the soldiers, and it's quite actually an awful and horrifying thing to experience. Next, we have the Soldier, which is written by a very famous war poet, Rupert Brooke. So Rupert Brooke was renowned for both his boyish good looks and for this poem. So while a lot of war poetry, such as Duque at Decorum Est, had a discernibly negative view, a lot of Brooke's poetry was far more positive because it glorified the actions of men and focused on the courage shown by the soldiers. Right, so as you can see, this piece could almost be considered a piece of propaganda because it appears to spin negatives into positives. So if you care to take a look at the second and the third line, we see that the narrator put a positive spin on his potential demise. He talks of his death in a foreign field. This is presumably a reference to a battlefield, but rather than lamenting on the notion of his own demise, he claims that it will mean there is a piece of England in that foreign country. So the suggestion here is that in some ways his death would be a victory to England as well. Right, so that's it for the past poems analysis. Moving on to the poem idea for the theme Peace and War. Alright, so for the poem structure, my group had decided to do a formal verse, which is because we want to provide a sense of harmony and musicality while enhancing the poem's overall aesthetic appeal, with systematic 4 lines per stanza and appropriate rhymes towards the end of each line. Right. So for the tone and mood, for the tone, we had decided to go for somber and serious because we wanted to convey the gravity and the solemnity of the theme. And the next one is the mood. We had decided on the melancholic and reflective mood because we want to evoke sadness while also recognizing the potential for healing and renewal. Meanwhile, we take our inspiration from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is we focuses on the human cause of war, because we want to reflect on the experiences of Palestinian civilians caught in the crossfire, their struggles for survival, and also the trauma of loss and displacement. Our audience for the poem is general readers, basically anyone who values thought-provoking poetry that explores profound themes of humanity, morality, and the quest for peace amidst the turmoil. Right. So this is a rough draft of our group poem titled Shadows of Innocence. Alright, so that's all from us. Thank you for your attention.